wanted to say before we start this panel, as a labor journalist and covering workers in communities, one of the people that I cover are whistleblowers. And whistleblowers have been making complaints about environmental dangers, toxins and dangers at the shipyard and many other places. And these whistleblowers are fired left and right. And there are thousands of them on the railroads. I've interviewed them who've been fired. So the reality is that workers who want to protect themselves and protect the environment are themselves under attack. And that's why they're afraid to speak up. When workers are afraid to speak up about health and safety, you got a disaster coming, because it goes on and on and on. Our first speaker is Vina Cawley, and she was an electrician at Pikestown at a nuclear facility and has been fighting to protect the people in that community in Ohio, and they're still being contaminated, and they're still fighting for justice. Welcome, Vina.
Before the railroad workers leave, they need to know that they're trying to make Piketon a nuclear hub, and they'll be shipping all of this nuclear waste, transuranic waste, from all these sites around the world. And not only that, but they're going to be shipping foreign product to Piketon, and we're going to be reprocessing it, and they're trying real hard to put 2 small modular reactors at Piketon, and they're calling them a powerhouse. A powerhouse is what they're calling it, but they're 2 small modular reactors, and we're going to be reprocessing transuranic waste. And transuranic waste has been reprocessed at Piketon for 70 years, and that has been the biggest secret there. We thought we were producing uranium and uranium hexafluorides and making bomb-grade material, but what they were doing was reprocessing this reactor fuel for 70 years and never told any of us. We weren't suited up to do that, but I just wanted to, maybe the railroad workers may have some comments about the transuranic waste that's coming through there. My name is Vina Cawley, and I am president of PRESS, Portsmouth Piketon Residents for Environmental Safety and Security. We have been in existence since 1987. I've been doing this since 1983. I filed my first grievance as a worker that I thought there was 30 workers at the plant were being exposed to radiation. I was breaking out with a lot of rashes and I didn't understand it. And Piketon has 3,800 acres. We have 3 huge process buildings. It's the largest facility in the world, and it's the most contaminated facility in the world. But the state of Ohio signed a consent agreement, and we were never even put on the Superfund list. And so we just had an epidemiologist that came in, Dr. Joe Mangano, and he found that we have the highest rate in cancer in Pike and Scioto County and the surrounding counties. And so everyone has turned their back on this community, and the reason they have is because they want to bring in those small modular reactors. And transuranic waste means plutonium, americia, neptunium, some of the worst radioactive nuclides that you can even think of wants to be processed there. We have the railroad and truck drivers brought in 24,000 depleted uranium cylinders that are sitting out in the yard. These cylinders give off neutron exposures. And while they were on the train, some of the workers who worked there were my friends. They said they used to sit on those cylinders, and this is even before I knew that they give off neutron exposures. Well, these workers were sitting on the cylinders, and they stood by them all day long in the railroad tracks. And my friends died of cancer. My husband, he passed away with cancer and some blood stuff. My brother-in-law worked at the plant. His leg got contaminated, and he passed away with cancer. My sister-in-law passed with cancer. My nephew, he worked at the plant. He just died of kidney cancer. Piketon is an SEC site, and what that means is we're a spatial exposure cohort, and that means they can't prove our exposures. So they passed a compensation bill in 1999 because we did have plutonium, and they denied it, and I told them in 93. Well, the gas diffusion plants, Piketon, Paducah, and Oak Ridge were in this compensation. Well, Paducah and Oak Ridge was in the compensation bill, and I found out about it. And I had plutonium at Piketon, so we were able to get to our representative, Ted Strickland, at that time. and we got added to the compensation bill by a thread. Well, 2 weeks ago, I find out they have this compensation bill, which is called RICA, and I have a petition for it for people to sign. This bill is a downwinders bill from the uranium miners. And there's a couple ladies there in St. Louis that has the waste facility there that's killing the people that live around there. So they've got this bill opened back up again and trying to get their landfill on the RICA. So when I found out, guess what? They added Paducah and Oak Ridge again and left Piketon out of it. So when I heard it that day, I called my Senator Brown, and I told him what was going on. And they were having a Senate hearing. So as soon as I called his office, him and J.D. Vance went to the Senate hearing. We didn't get on the bill, but we got mentioned. But it passed the Senate. And now this bill is in the House. And we're asking people to call anyone that they know that's a House representative and tell them to put the Portsmouth gas diffusion plant in that bill. I mean, we have the highest rate of cancer in the state of Ohio, and we're 87% national there. When I started working there, I thought it was the safest place in the world because they stressed hard hats and safety glasses. Well, come to find out, I was an electrician, and we were cleaning uranium-contaminated cells with trichloroethylene. And when we got through with this job, we said, where do we dump it? They said down the drains. So we dumped it down the drains. And then when I went to the doctor and I was breaking out these rashes, and he didn't know what was wrong with me, but he said, when you go back to work, make sure you suit up. So I had to suit up, and I wore paper coveralls, paper shoes. I wore rubber gloves, and then I would walk in different areas, and these guys says, what you got all that on for? And I said, well, they told me to keep it no matter where I'm going. And they were getting nervous because I was even going into the lunchroom wearing these protective equipment. Well, that stuff they gave me to wear did not protect anybody. And so after I filed that grievance in '83, they started watching me on the job and making my supervisors take me everywhere that I went. And then my boss, he had to take care of me, and he put me in this golf cart, and we went over in the 333 building. I said, where are we going? He said, we're going to go over to, there's a radiation alarm going over, and we got to reset the alarm. So when we got in that building, we got halfway down the building, and here comes this gray stuff after us. And he took and put me on the golf cart, and he said, let's get out of here. He said, job's over. I said, what was that stuff coming through there? He never did tell me. So then I got really sick and had to go to a ears, throat, and doctor, and he did a biopsy on my lungs, and he said that I needed to go to an occupational health and safety hospital and be checked. So I went down to Cincinnati, and they did a biopsy, or they did a lanscopy on my lungs. And 2 weeks after I left the plant, I had 2.12 fluorides in my urinalysis. So I was in a uranium hexafluoride release at the plant, and they didn't even tell me. So I worked for 5 years, and then I went off, and I was on disability, and they made sure that they took me off workers' comp in '87. And of course, I had lost my pension, but they vested pension at 5 years, Goodyear did. And I lived there all my life, and I didn't even know that we were making weapons for the world. I didn't know. It was called Goodyear Atomic, and I thought they made Goodyear tire and rubber. So I thought all this stuff that was leaking through the process building had something to do with making tires. But their product was leaking through the system. They were getting 290-some thousand parts per million up here, but I don't know what they got down here because there's other chemicals that was mixing in with it. And they never surveyed the areas that we worked in. They just put us in it. We had a construction crew that worked there, 19 family members that worked for Boone Coleman Construction, all died from working at the plant, either from cancer or some type of illnesses, and many of those workers got compensated. They would drive the trucks in, and Goodyear workers would be suited up. Their workers would not be suited up. And so 17 members, and we went to Boone Coleman, we told him, Boone, your workers are not being suited up. And they're putting this stuff in their trucks, and where they hauled it to, we don't know. We've heard ballparks, the racetrack, different places. So I talked to a few workers that's working there now, and they're doing the same thing. They got truck drivers coming in, taking all this dirt over to the dump. They got 12 cells there now. Our theory was we fought the cells. We didn't want waste cells because we knew once they start that, we would wind up being a dump. Well, that's what they're trying to do now, and trying to clean up everybody else's site and not telling these workers they don't get hazardous pay. And then when we got the compensation bill in 1999, somehow or another, they put a limit. If you worked there from 1952 to 1999, you're automatically added into this bill. Well, after 92, these workers that are doing all this decontamination, and they do open air demo on these buildings, and these workers are not in the compensation bill. Hopefully, the union, I was over to Union Hall, and we've been talking about the petition, and they're supposed to be working on one, but if that don't happen, all these workers after 92 will not be compensated for their illnesses. It's such a tragedy. We've been sacrificed. They just don't care. They don't care who you are. It's all about money. It's about greed. But as soon as I found out that we wasn't on that list for the compensation bill, I called, like I said, Brown, and they went straight over to the Senate and J.D. Vance, and I put a petition online. This is an election year. You guys need to petition your representatives to get their butts here to help you. You all need health insurance. It's a shame what they've done to you in such a short period of time in a big accident. And they're going to have a lot more accidents because they're going to be hauling this waste on these trains. But sometimes I just forget. I lose my concentration. But my illnesses, when I went to work there, I was a healthy worker. They made me take all kind of extra testing to make sure I was healthy. And since I worked there, and of course I'm a lot older now, but I've had these illnesses since I was in my 30s. I had a total hysterectomy. I had thyroid problems. I have chronic beryllium disease, and there's no cure for chronic beryllium disease. It affects your lungs, and there's just no cure. I have the 2 nodules, and they tell these workers that have these nodules that they're just from the dirt. And they have a workers monitoring program where they go in and check you and give you a physical. And it's not a very good physical, not for toxic chemicals. And so the company did an in vivo on me, and they found out that I have neptunium in my lungs and cesium in my lungs and Tech 99s in my lungs. And each time they would do this, they would check my neck to see if it was getting any bigger or whatever, and they would do my weight. So they were checking my body counts by the weight, and this in vivo said that I have all this in it. And the only place I could get that in me was working there at the plant. And I now have a monitor that Dr. Michael Ketterer, who does a lot of testing, I've been doing samples, and we do our own samples now. We don't pay any attention to the plant. And so we are finding lots of off-site contamination. I have company records that says they have off-site contamination, and they continue to lie. We've had representatives to come in for public meetings, and they hold them on plant side, so we can't go on plant side, and they use the workers as the community. And so we have no input. And now they have an SSAB board, and what's really important for everyone is these commissioners and these city council people, they make a lot of decision behind your back. And we now have an SSAB board, and they have commissioners and mayors and union people. Everyone except the environmental people are not on that board. And so they're making, these office people that you vote in there are making decisions behind your back and giving the company what they want. They give them that. They're the ones that made the decision on those 12 waste cells, and we fought it for 3 years. And then we didn't want it. We had a room full of people all the time, and we thought we were winning. And then all of a sudden, here they come in trucking and making these waste cells, and it looks just like a big swimming hole with a trash bag in it. And one thing they get worried about is beavers. Beavers can eat through that trash can liner. It's a lot thicker than a trash can liner, but it's still, beavers can go through it. And this plant is sitting on fractured bedrock. And we're in the, yay, here comes your bus. And we're and we're sitting on fractured bedrock. We're in the earthquake zone. We're in the flood zone. We're in the tornado zone. We had a tornado that hit a little community about 10, 15, 20 miles from there, with the winds up to 260 miles per hour. And you have all of these cylinders, 24,000 of depleted uranium cylinders, giving off neutron exposures, setting in this land. But I do have a petition over here. We're trying to get on RECA. Right now, I have all 4 senators working, but they haven't made up their mind about it, but they're trying to get us added to the RECA. So if anyone would like to sign a petition, we would be so grateful.
My name is David Feaster. I am the Western Pennsylvania organizer for Food and Water Watch, based out of Northside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but grew up here in Chippewa Township. My parents live right over in Chippewa on the other side of the border. Hillary and I actually went to the same high school, a couple years apart. And I've been thinking about this whole situation a lot, just because it not only personally impacts me, but a lot of the people that I have come to be really good friends with. Doing a lot of work here around the shell plant in particular, which came online fully this past year, and has been spewing toxic pollution into the atmosphere in Beaver County and in the region that whole time. I'm sorry, y'all. It's a little emotional because I've been here before. I was here with Hillary when the representatives from our EPA region came and said that they had nothing but inconclusive tests here.
And said they weren't going to come back and test anything else.
Yes, exactly. And had about as much to say on dioxins as the EPA currently do. They basically told the residents here in East Palestine with a straight face that that everything was safe as far as they could tell. I've gotten to know people as they have come and talked time and time again. I've had the pleasure to work with Jamie and Christina. And I met Chris at the Towson Toxic Tour when we were up here with you guys a couple months ago, or a couple weeks ago. My sense of time is warped. I have a toddler. Yes. But I've been coming to this town for years. I've gotten to know people here throughout my time growing up here and then coming back here as a activist and as a affected community member. And I just want to hold space for everybody's hurt and their anger and their fear and their desperation. And I want you to be able to hold that and feel that. Because one of the things that's most important is we grasp the emotional scope of what has happened here in this place. Because it continues to happen everywhere in this country. Because of the motives which everybody at this table has espoused previously. But also just because of the disconnectedness that we have inherited. All of us here. And one of the most beautiful things about being here at this table with all of you, some of whom I've known for a while, some of whom I just met. And seeing people here that I never expected to see, quite frankly, people from other walks of life, is that every time that we come together, in whatever size of a group, we fight back. Togetherness, the act of supporting one another, is absolutely revolutionary in times like these. And I just want to hold space for that and to commend everybody for coming here and seeing this, bearing witness to this feeling, bearing witness to the pain that everybody's going through here. Because it takes real bravery to come up and talk about what you're going through time and time again. Jamie and Christina and Rob and Lori and all the other people that have continued to speak out. Hillary. From an organizational capacity, Food and Water Watch works on these issues all over the country. Here in Pennsylvania, we work a lot on oil and gas site fight issues, which are inexorably tangled with these things because that natural gas is the feedstock for all those plastic pellets, is the feedstock for all that vinyl chloride. Exactly. All these sites are intertwined, as other people have said more eloquently than my fuzzy brain can get around right now. But our organization is committed to continuing to fight fracking here in Pennsylvania, and committed toward holding Josh Shapiro accountable for the promises he made as Attorney General to implement common sense protections like mandatory setbacks. But we're also going to stand here with you in East Palestine. We aren't going anywhere. And our organization is behind you 100%. Whatever we can do to continue to spread the word about what has happened here, we're here. I'm really thankful for the chance to be here with y'all today. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And I look forward to helping in whatever way that I can and we can organizationally. Thank you.
I want to give a little context for why I'm here, and I'm not saying it to be like, look at the work that we did, but I'm saying it because it's really exciting to be here with a bunch of unions and environmental activists and residents and people who are from a lot of different walks of life that, you know, at least in my work, I'm told we're on the different, you know, we're in opposition to one another. And I just really appreciate this moment because it's very clear that we aren't. And so I just want to speak a little bit to, you know, my organization did a little bit of relief work in East Palestine last year, shortly after the derailment. Jamie was the first person I met. I showed up to a public meeting and she was handing out flyers, and I was like, I want to help hand out flyers, and quickly met a lot of different residents. And we ended up raising a little over $70,000 to get air purifiers into households for folks who weren't able to leave or chose not to leave, in order to do what we can to decontaminate indoor living spaces, because that wasn't happening. And something that wasn't lost on me was that when I put up a flag in Pitttsburgh that said, folks need water, folks need funds, folks need cleaning supplies that aren't chemically based, folks need trash bags, folks need PPE, right? We don't know what we're dealing with. We need people to have respirators. It was rank and file union members who showed up. It was folks like Robin and David who showed up. It was folks who had family from the region who showed up. And there were a lot of, you know, us hippie environmentalists too who showed up. But it was working class people who showed up for one another. Like I said, I didn't have anything planned to say. So I think I'll just like thank folks and point out like folks like Mike Stout, who I get, you know, I look up to a lot because like, I don't want to say I try to be like Mike because I can't rock your style, man. But like you got a foot in the union world and you have a foot in the environmentalist world, and we need more people like that. And I I share space with you sometimes, and I try to do a little bit of what you do, and I know we're getting it from both directions a lot of times, right? We want to show up in solidarity unions, and they go, you're the ones who are killing our jobs. And we show up to environmentalists, and we say, we got to support this union fight. And they go, those are the folks polluting our neighborhoods, right? And it's like, there's one enemy in all that, and it's the boss, right? And I know Melanie experiences the same thing in Clareton, where the coke works there is poisoning her community, and you knock doors there, and you have residents saying, well, if the plant goes away, all the jobs are going to go away, but we all know that how many people in Clareton work at that plant anymore?
Right.
Yeah. And we also know that, like, the Mon Valley, right? Black working class communities, those are the folks who comprise other unions in the building services, like SEIU 32BJ, right? And so you got union members working in a shop that's polluting other union members' homes, and for some reason we're supposed to be at each other's throats when it's the same politicians and the same corporations who are pitting us against each other, and we're all getting screwed. And so I just want to say thank you to Chris and all the different union brothers and sisters who came out. I just want to say, like, Robin and David and I are really annoying in spaces with our colleagues, and Zach too, because we do our best to bring folks from our industry, because that's what it is. We are workers too. To bring folks from our industries to picket lines, to do what we can to pass the hat for strike funds. And I'm just really happy to build connections with folks today as much as I can, because like a lot of you all were saying and sharing your wisdom, it's one fight for a good life, and we can do it together. And this is a really good first step. Also, shout out to, I don't know why I'm thanking everybody. I feel a lot of gratitude. Also, shout out to Steve and all the folks from the Union Progress and the News Guild, because y'all have been the most consistent coverage in the region for East Palestine. They covered every fundraising event that we did, and every pub and every little backyard event that we had to raise a couple $100s here and there to put an air purifier into a home. And that's why, it's not why we did it, because it's the right thing to do, but that's one of the reasons that we came out on the strike lines at 2 or 3 in the morning to stop those trucks, right? That's why we helped raise strike funds and split funds at the event at Bottle Rocket, So I just really appreciate y'all. I love to see I feel very privileged to be able to look at people and know the connections of how they got here, and that just feels amazing to me. So I know that it sucks why we're here, and it's not okay why we're here, but there's a lot of power and wisdom here, and I just really appreciate you all sharing it with everyone, but with me. So.
Person, maybe we can give a big hand to the brothers and sisters and siblings from Iowa.
Iowa's in the house, y'all. They made it. These poor solidarity. These poor folks were broke down on the side of the road at 4 in the morning, and they made it here. And this event would not have happened without them either. And I just wanted to let folks know, they also brought sodas. So if you want more soda, I'm bringing it over there. And the great Penny Logston has the sign-up sheets that people were asking for earlier. So if you want to sign up, you want to be part of this, you want to stay up to date, please sign up here. And also if you want to sign on as a supporter of the campaign to pressure Biden to invoke the Stafford Act, you can sign on here.
Hey y'all, it's great to be here. I want to say that Baltimore, both Labor and EJ, stand with East Palestine, and we will be in this struggle alongside you guys. So I have been organizing for 13, 14 years in Baltimore, an overburdened community that has 70+ industries and the highest respiratory illnesses in the country. CSX is our big enemy in Baltimore, and so that's what brought me to Hillary and a lot of the folks in East Palestine. We have been watching coal trains run through our community. We know that CSX and Norfolk Southern own the largest coal export pier on the East Coast, and they are making so much money, $8 billion, right, off of housing their coal in a neighborhood that has 70-plus industries. So we've been organizing with young people, with high school students who have been in this for a very long time, and older residents in the community who are fed up, right, with industry kind of railroading right over them. And so that's what brought me to East Palestine, was thinking about capital being borderless, and how do our movements become borderless? How do we build across state boundaries? How do we think about these as interconnected issues, not independent silos? We need to weave this fabric together to build a much broader movement, as our brothers from the unions talked about, reclaiming, nationalizing rail. We need to put Alan Shaw and the CEO of CSX in The Hague. We need prison for white-collar crime. We do it for young, poor, brown, and black folks are feeding our carceral system. The same needs to go for corporate rail and every other corporate entity that's in these communities, literally making a profit off of brown and black in a place like Baltimore communities, right? So we came a few weeks ago with organizers from Baltimore to say, we stand with you guys, and we'll show up, we'll continue to show up, and we want to build. We want to think about, how do we take on these billion-dollar corporations, and what does it look like to cross race, to cross class, to cross regions, and to see not just the struggles, but these fossil economies as interconnected, right? I think it was so appropriate to talk about vinyl chloride as connected to plastics. We're fighting for zero waste because we're burning plastics in Baltimore. Our incinerators are killing people. So we are connected, but they don't want us to be. And so I think part of it is not just the education and consciousness raising, but figuring out how we can grow this movement. So I'm honored to be here. The stories have stuck with me since I sat and listened in East Palestine. I can't sleep at night thinking about it and how we continue to build with you guys. So thanks.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Hillary Flint. I am billed on the schedule as an environmentalist, but I would just say that I'm a human being. I was diagnosed with kidney cancer in my late 20s. And it was something that made me look and go, you know, hey, how does this happen? And that's really where I got to where I am today. Maybe not how I was affected by the derailment, but what got me interested in the environment. And I went down this whole campaign of why, right? Going to all your different doctors and talking to everyone and saying, you know, why did this happen to me? And we did testing, and we found out that I had a gene mutation, which had been in my family for, you know, generations, but it had never been triggered this early. So then I had a new question. Why was it triggered this early? And so I went to all the best geneticists I could find, and they told me environmental reasons. So then I go, well, what are they? What is it? And they go, oh, we can't tell you that. We don't know. And so I became a detective, and I started looking at everything around me, everything I consume, everything that passes by. And that's when I really started getting concerned about the petrochemical industry in my region. So I'm from Enon Valley, Pennsylvania, which is just over the border. I'm less than 4 miles from where the train derailed, and that's in Beaver County, where we have a growing plastics industry. So we have the Shell ethane cracker plant that came online just over a year ago. We have another plastics plant, Styropec, that is polluting the Ohio River. We have a nuclear power plant, which adds just a whole bunch of fun to that. And we're also Beaver County has the Norfolk Southern hub, the railroad hub, Conway Rail Yards. So, when Norfolk Southern had a train derail in the area, in Beaver County, people don't want to talk about it because so many of our families are employed by Norfolk Southern, right? Even a lot of our firefighters locally also work for Norfolk Southern. And so it's been a special challenge. Everything about my life has changed since the derailment. I live in a different state. I have a different job. I have different hobbies, which are now actually none. You know, I always say I've grown up in the middle. I've always been in the middle, and I don't mean the middle class. I mean someone who's bridging between two worlds. So I am a resident, but now I'm also an environmentalist, apparently. And something about being someone who lives in the middle, you learn how to work with different types of people, and that's a huge positive, but you also never fit into either side. And it causes a lot of interpersonal conflict, right? Because you're never 100% this or 100% that. And it gives me opportunities to be in different spaces that people on the other side aren't in and don't get to go in, and it's not fair. And so this has been probably the most emotional year of my life, because I have to be the conduit between residents and people that can help residents. And sometimes those people don't. And so I am the don't shoot the messenger type of person. And it's really challenging. And you know, I have the privilege of now being able to work in this work full-time and get paid to do that. And that's something that, you know, anyone here who can employ an affected resident on your staff, that is what you need to do. You don't need to hire academics who talk about these problems as a concept. You need to hire people like Jamie Wallace. You need to hire the people that live it and the people that can explain it, and you need to give them the resources that make them, they're already great organizers, but you need to give them the resources so they can continue the job. Because people get tired, and that's a real thing. Burnout's a real thing. And I'm so blessed to have met Melanie Mead, who always checks in on me. And she asks me what I'm doing for self-care, and you know, usually Nikki's students a couple weeks ago had asked me that, you know, what do you do for self-care? And I laughed, and everyone in the room was like, that's kind of nerd, that's not good, you're not gonna stay in the fight. So I've really made an active decision on what keeps me in this fight, what keeps me going. And sometimes it's not the thing that gets me the most friends. And sometimes it's not the people that, sometimes I just have to put my head down and say, I have to do the work, I have to do the work, I have to do the work. And the hardest part is that the relationships are the work. My friend Andrew Woomer has told me that when the many times where I've cried on the phone to him and said, you know, I'm just so tired, I don't want to talk about the emotions. I don't want to talk about, you know, my family and what my family's gone through. Like, I just want to do the work to get us all out of that. I don't want to sit in this space and cry, and I've learned that unfortunately the crying is part of the work, which is tough. But you know, being an environmentalist in this area is particularly challenging too. As you had mentioned, you know, we want things in concept, but when they're brought to us in reality, we don't vote for those things because they don't align with the party that we support, and you know why we support certain things. That's a whole other long historical conversation. But being the person who has to then go to these politicians and explain, you know, what we're seeing and why we're seeing that, and kind of playing that uncomfortable middle person it's a real challenge. And it's something that environmentalists do often, because as everyone on this panel knows, we work with affected residents and we have to sit there and we have to do toxic tours. And you know, I never thought, I'm a toxic tour host now. It's something I do almost every month. I host people, whether it's Washington County, whether it's, you know, Towson University, people from the Gulf South, the Permian Basin, and it's a whole type of tourism I never expected to be in. But, you know, that's the important work, because now I can look around this room and see different people that I've met at different events from different states and different regions, different industries, and that's the beautiful thing. But what we didn't have was power, and we've been actively in building that in a manner that, you know, I wish it was faster, but I think this is what's sustainable for us to, again, be in the work. So, you know, really the only thing I can say is, you know, again, please hire affected residents, please listen to them, please don't hire people to talk about stories like Jamie or Christina or Lori or Darren, hire them. That is what I want to get across to the environmental movement in general too. You know, you can train and you can go to school and things like that, but it's the people that live it who are the working class who really know how to solve our problems, right? And so when we can come together with different members of working class, you know, we might be working in different facilities, but we're all working towards the same thing. So the thing that I want to, you know, really say is just continue uplifting resident voices, keep them in the rooms of planning, call them when you have media opportunities, and keep building power and telling these stories so that next year when we have an event like this, which I hope we don't have to do like this, maybe it'll be more social, but that way this room has even more people from more places and more walks of life. And that's really the work that in East Palestine we're doing right now, is continuing to build power, because what we've learned is talking to our elected officials isn't I sat down with the President of the United States last month. It didn't get me anywhere. It's another promise for another day, for another meeting, for another, no. Now, the way that we show them is that we come with more people. And every meeting it's more people and more power. And that's how we move the needle. It's not a conversation with an elected official. It's an elected official seeing you bring the power to them. And so that's what we'll continue to do here today. And I want to thank everyone for being here. We really appreciate it.
I want to make sure that everyone here sticks together, the groups. Watch for people to come in and make you all fight. That happens. They pass rumors, and so you don't stick together. You got to stick together to win this. Watch out. Don't let Agency for Toxic Substance and Disease and CDC, because all their studies are inconclusive by design. They're not your friends. They're a government agency. We've dealt with them now twice.